In the 1800s, this was the most prominent flat earther, Samuel Robotham, and he died around the age of 67. But for over half of his life, for over 35 years, he published and lectured on his beliefs that the earth was flat and not round. And in 1849, he wrote a book which is available right here, Zetetic Astronomy, Earth Not a Globe, an experimental inquiry into the true figure of the Earth, proving it a plane without axial or orbital motion. And a really cool book which goes into all kinds of flat Earth theory. And as founder of the Universal Zetetic Society in 1873, he didn't have much of a successor until the 1900s, when another Samuel would continue his work, Samuel Shenton. And of course we know Shenton as the founder of the 1956 International Flat Earth Research Society. And if you look that up on Wikipedia, of course they're going to talk about a relaunch of the International Flat Earth Research Society in 2004, which eventually led to the relaunch of the society in October 2009 and the creation of a new website featuring a public collection of flat earth literature and wiki. This is a bunch of disinformation, and Wikipedia pushing this is, well, I guess par for the course for Wikipedia. But if you go to that Flat Earth Society, the new Flat Earth Society, which is right here, this thing is just a bunch of satire. They don't discuss anything on the forums at all. If you try to bring up a a flat Earth debate or something like that, it's laughed at. And this entire Flat Earth Society and website and this forum is just a huge satirical piece. There's no legitimate flat Earth research being done with the Flat Earth Society. So what Samuel Shenton had started in 1956 was something legitimate, and he was doing legitimate flat Earth research. So just so we don't get Samuel Shenton tied up with this nonsense website, they're totally separate. This guy, of course, had nothing to do with this relaunch of the Flat Earth Society. Essentially, this relaunch is just to take credibility away from what Samuel Shenton had started. On my channel, I recently posted a video called Can You Speak Venusian, which Samuel Shenton is in this video. So if you haven't seen that, go ahead and check that out. It's the 1970s Flat Earth. Really, 1960s if we're talking about Samuel Shenton. But here I have a collection of Shenton's lectures and documents and posters. So I figured I'd just go through them real quick. They are pretty interesting and very well done. This is Genesis 1. Commencement, creation, disaster indicated, earth described, also without form, void, emptiness, darkness upon the face of the deep, and the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters. A few more references to some Bible verses here, and a depiction of what that looks like: darkness upon the face of the deep, void and without form, and empty ruin. And here we have the first day. Genesis chapter 1, the first day, let there be light, and there was light, division of light and darkness. God called the light day and the darkness night. Evening and morning completed, and that was the first day. So up above we have some light dividing between or from the darkness, face of the deep, depths illustrated as being lighter and thus revealing the mass of the ruined earth. And here we have the second day of creation. Creation of the firmament. God said, let there be a firmament in the midst of the waters, and the firmament divides the waters which are under the firmament from the waters which are above the firmament. The firmament is called heaven, and evening and morning complete. This is the second day. And he's done some research on the word firmament, what it means in Hebrew: expansion, a bubble; Latin, a firmamentum, a prop or stay; Greek, stereoma, which idea of sky as a fixed dome. And there's no mention of light in the firmament until verse 14. So we have some light up here, waters above the firmament, the firmament or heaven, dividing the waters from the waters above the firmament to the waters below the firmament. Here are some symbols used for firmament. You got the line going through the dome, just the dome. Perhaps the firmament depicted as a triangle or like the tent shape. Once again, perhaps a line going through it here. And here we have the third day of creation. Earth revealed above waters. And there's the sea over here. The third day, earth and sea, grass, herbs, trees. God said, let the waters under the heaven be gathered together in one place, thus revealing the earth. Earth freed from water brings forth grass, herbs, and fruit and trees. And the evening and the morning complete the third day. And noting that the ancient symbolism regarding earth, it is indicated above that the earth's surface has hills, etc., but its contour is a square or oblong. And something written down here in a light pencil hand, I couldn't read it. Something part 3. But the third day of creation here with the land being revealed out of the water. The Pre-Pelleg plan of Earth. Here is a top view of the dome with the land here shown as a rectangle. The plan shows beautiful proportions of land masses before and after the flood. Genesis 10 and 11 deals with the building of the city and tower to reach into the heaven, Babylon, and the splitting of the land. So he's saying that at one point the earth was more or less like this, or one piece of land, and then it got split up. And modern day scientists also say the same thing. They say that at one point the North America, Africa, South America, Antarctica, Australia, India, it was all one piece, and over time they were broken up and moved off into 7 separate continents. So I don't know if it was a perfect rectangle or if it was one land mass, hard to say. Here's some symbolism of earth and heaven. From the ancient to modern times, these fundamental symbols have been used to depict heaven and earth. They are found in modern church, Freemasonry, and religious cults, and practiced in all parts of the earth. And we have the firmament from the top with the square earth. This is basically a square and compass. And the reason why is there's a square in the middle, and the compass is used to draw a perfect circle. So you can use the compass to draw this circle. J.K. Rowling reveals the inspiration for her Deathly Hallows symbol right here, and of course it's a Masonic symbol. The Masonic symbol is very important in that movie, said J.K. Rowling, and it's not quite an exact match, but the same type of thing. You've got the triangle here. The circle is, of course, drawn with the compass. And heaven is usually depicted as the triangle, or, as we've seen earlier, symbols used for the firmament. So just having this square with the circle inside is a symbol for the square and compass, just like this one right here. This is the earth. The confines of the earth made by the base of the firmament. And interesting that when you have a cube and you unwrap it, you get a cross shape. Not sure how and if these are associated with flat earth symbolism, but I do know this means square and compass. And it looks like it's also a symbol for the earth and the firmament. Here we have the fourth day of creation. And there's daylight mist to water the earth. The fourth day, sun and moon and stars lights in the firmament, thus making day and night relative to earth, to be for signs, seasons, and days of the year, to give light upon the earth. There's 2 great lights. Not necessarily that the light givers should be light in themselves, but as shown are sources of light, the effect of which we see. But because of the fact that airmen rise into indigo blackness and intense cold, it is understood that the sun is positive electricity, cold and dark. We feel and see only the emissions. The moon and earth are considered to be negative. The sun, etc., have set course above the earth. So there we have the lights being created on the fourth day of creation. And the same, just to flip a little paper down here, and it explains the fifth, sixth, and seventh day of creation. Moving creatures, cattle, beasts, and man. And then on the seventh day is the Sabbath, so it's rest. So that is the flat earth dome firmament view of the 7 days of creation. And once the land had been split up, the continents looked like this. Present display of land masses in accordance with the polar projection used by mariners, showing the ease of circumnavigation, compass pointing to north at any position. Earth and confines are flat and circular, not a globe or spheroid. Also, it is motionless since the days of Pre-Pelleg till the time of regeneration, when it will be reformed. Following the islands as indicators, also cults, animals, minerals, plants, monuments. The act of division, riven asunder, would seem to have been anti-clockwise. So a great flat earth map here, with approximate navigational confines at the ice wall of Antarctica. Here we have the distribution of animals that have 2 front teeth in their lower jaw. The kangaroos of Australia and, of course, over here in South America. So evidence that it originally was one land mass and that it split up. Here's the distribution of butterflies, the distribution of frogs. No explanation here, just some symbolism. Of course, we recognize the square with the circle around it, but we have yet another square around that circle. The ziggurat, meaning holy mountain. Not sure what it is. It reminds me of the Tower of Babylon. There's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 steps. I was expecting 7. And here is the post-Pelleg condition. Peleg named because in his days earth was divided. Genesis 10 and 11. The Hebrew word phaleg or phales meaning division. The torn, rent surface of the earth as we know it today, as shown above, and it will remain in this condition until the days of regeneration, the day of the Lord, when he arises to shake terribly the earth and to make the new heaven and earth. So if this new heaven and earth is going to be under our firmament and not under a different firmament, then likely this new heaven and the new earth hasn't happened yet and hasn't been made yet, because we still have these 7 continents. And this one, some more symbolism. We have the double firmament or the double heaven. We'll see another note on that shortly. Here is a firmament, it looks like, with a holy city. Maybe the New Jerusalem, regeneration, the new heaven and the new earth. The New Jerusalem, which comes from heaven, the bride of Christ, no more death, all things new, city lit by the presence of God. Stars have fallen from the firmament, heaven and earth cleansed with fire. The mountain of the Lord's house, the Father's house has many mansions. So this might mean that there are many firmaments or many earths. Heavens have been shaken and the earth moved, and the earth is again at rest. The new heaven and earth shall remain. The Lord God did not form the heaven and the earth in vain. He formed them to be inhabited. 1 Corinthians, God supreme, peace on earth. And in Luke, glory to God. So a picture of the new heaven and the new earth with the holy city, which apparently descends from heaven. And from the Bible, it seems like there won't be any need for light, that you won't need a sun, there won't be darkness. So hard to imagine what that will be like. No description here. Maybe this is the New Jerusalem. And isn't this one interesting? We get some one-eye symbolism. If anyone knows more about this image and what it means, please let me know in the comments. I'm not sure what the T is. We have a double triangle here, but it doesn't form a Star of Refram or the Seal of Solomon. But there is a triangle pointing down and a triangle pointing up. And I don't know what this means here. So if you know more about this, please let me know. It seems like as above, so below. And that's kind of what that triangle facing up and that triangle facing down means. We can see here a firmament. Just if we go to the next image, it's like that upper half of the firmament. And then there's a lower half down here. So anyways, not sure what's going on here and what this all means. But going forward, we just see a nice painting of multiple firmaments. And some more symbolism. Now we do have the Star of Refram. So interesting that he is using this symbol. It's not something I typically would be painting on papers or doing one-eye symbolism. So, but do recognize the similarity between the triangle pointing up here and the triangle pointing downwards here. And we see that, of course, is the upwards facing triangle here and the downwards facing triangle here. And not sure of the significance of this. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. With 1 in the middle. So 11 total. Avabury restored. Showing that the ancients had knowledge of the structure and plan of the double heaven. And I'm not too familiar with the double heaven, so I might have to have some research to do here. But apparently, this shows that the ancients knew of this double heaven. Earth Age, pre-Adam human evidence, and evidence of perfect human types long before Genesis 1. We have the Nampa Image, which is interesting, from Ada County, Idaho. I spent quite a bit of time over there in Ada County, Idaho, and I've moved away since. But interesting that we have some historical conspiracy from Ada County, Idaho. This stone carving of a human was sucked up by sand pumps, and it was, says here, a depth of 200 feet, but it was about 320 feet down near some part of the Snake River. And a professor who studied it said it would seem that we recede in time instead of getting nearer to the missing link. We are getting further away from it. This was very bad for evolution. And for anybody who believes in evolution, they would have to say this thing is a hoax. Otherwise, it shatters their complete theory of evolution. The Unexplained Stone Doll, a real unexplained mystery. In July 1889, found in Nampa, Idaho. They had a small human figure from a well drilling operation. It was found at a depth of 320 feet, and the small doll was composed of half clay and half quartz, according to at least one expert. It was not the product of a small child or an amateur, but was made by a true artist. And if you do a search for the Nampa Image, of course, you're going to find calling it a hoax. And here they're saying, oh, it's an Indian doll. But the reason why that they're calling it a hoax is because if this is legitimately 320 feet down and found in this well-drained operation, then that shatters the theory of evolution completely. So if you want to retain your belief in evolution, you're going to have to call this find a hoax. But I dug deeper into it and found this book called The Nampa Image, which goes into quite the detail on the statue itself and where it was found. 60 feet of soil, 12 feet of lava rock, 100 feet of quicksand, and they go all the way down, of course, to the 320 feet where they had found it at. And scientists struggling to retain their faith in Darwinism has suggested that the image might have been inserted in the pump during the night. So yeah, these water drillers have worked up quite the conspiracy to put this statue into their pump into the night, so the next day they would pull it out and have some kind of a hoax for whatever reason. There was no money from it. There was no explanation for why someone would want to portray such a hoax. The image was molded out of a plastic, gritty clay, and afterwards burned in a fire. Burned in a fire. Well, there goes the cornhusk doll theory. And the professors who studied it regarded the Nampa image as a most important evidence of the great antiquity of man in America. He was on the spot the day the find was made, and he is, as you are aware, not only a graduate of the college, but also an educated as a lawyer and passed several years of study in Europe as a man of the highest personal character, accustomed to weight evidence, and is not likely to be deceived. I was present at the finding of the image. Circumstances were such that there could not have been a mistake. I don't think there was any chance for the helper to have placed it in the sand, nor do I think he was capable of doing. So it seems this Nampa image is a legitimate archaeological discovery, which certainly causes Darwinism and the theory of evolution to be thrown out, because there's no way with evolution that we are going to find a carved statue 320 feet below the surface of the current Earth. And of course, mentioning here the Darwinian theory of evolution, and throughout his work, Human Origins, he has made every effort to discredit the biblical account of creation. And there is no evidence of evolution. Rather, Genesis chapter 1 is proved to be true, and the note that the different kinds were to increase and multiply and fill again the earth proves that before Genesis 1, the earth had fullness of life thereupon it. Moving on to the next one. It looks like a cathedral. Some more symbolism here, and it looks like a dome firmament. Maybe all these style of domes that we see in architecture are duplicates of the firmament. We got the triangle in the middle. Maybe that represents the Trinity, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost, because here is the cross with it, but not sure exactly the meaning of this one. And I had shared this earlier on my channel, and what a cool picture this one is. This appears to be the New Jerusalem over here, and some type of earth that is gone, has lost its firmament. Here's ours. Maybe another new world being made with just has the rectangular landform in the middle that hasn't broken apart yet, and a bunch of different firmaments. Who knows what's out there? But when the Bible in Revelation talks about a new heaven and a new earth, and there will be no more sea, you know, maybe that's talking about somewhere else under a different firmament. Maybe it's this one where there's a new heaven and a new earth. The new city of Jerusalem, there's no sea over here. Supposedly that's all supposed to happen underneath of our firmament. But there's a possibility it has happened, and it's happened underneath of a different firmament. I don't know. This matter is simple to children, unspoiled by science, falsely so called. But a 1001 questions should rise in the adult mind. Not sure what we got here. Some boats and cities. And this one was a very cool painting, a very familiar picture of the guy peeking through the firmament into what's beyond, which I think is the spirit world. But, you know, we see the wheels within wheels as described in the Bible. An old picture of the world. This picture shows what people in the Middle Ages thought the world was like. The earth was supposed to be flat, and the sun, moon, and stars were supposed to be held on a bowl-like firmament over the earth. The old-time artist actually drew somebody peeping through the firmament into the other world. A nice 1970s version of coloring of that image. The two beliefs, modern astronomy and Bible cosmology, cannot be held together in the same mind. For he who thinks he believes both has thought very little of either. Thomas Paine, Age of Reason. And this is something to contemplate. For the person who calls themselves a Christian or a believer of God, yet they think that NASA is a legitimate organization. NASA says that the Earth was created from a Big Bang. So if you believe anything that's put forth by NASA, you're throwing God out and you're throwing creation out. The Copernican system is acknowledged to have much of error, unsound reasoning, and happy conjecture. Chambers, Encyclopedia, New Edition, Volume 3, page 462, 1889. Newton's theory, hocus pocus and fiction upon fiction, seeking to dazzle where he cannot convince. Goeth, from the Royal Institute, Volume 9, Part 3, page 353. Now we get distances, and here Newton's written up here for some reason. The sun's distance is used as the unit of measurement for star distances, Proctor. And this is called the astronomical unit, the distance between the Earth and the sun. The exact science, sun's distance from Earth, Copernicus says 3 million miles, Tycho 13, Kepler 13, Newton 28. On his second attempt, he said 54 million miles. Then we get Martin from 1754 saying it's 81 or 82 million miles. And we get 95 million miles, 104 million miles, all the way up to where we are at from R. Ball saying it's 92 or 93 million miles. And from the original Copernicus, which everybody's, who loves the sphere Earth is going to tout up Copernicus. Well, he thought the sun was 3 million miles from Earth, and that's only a 100 million mile difference from what people today believe. Even though they'll still quote Copernicus and say his study proves the spherical Earth, they probably won't mention that he said the Earth is 3 million miles from the sun. Here's a scale of the solar system. The sun's altitude at all seasons of the year is just equal to 3 meridians of longitude on the equator, or 2,700 miles. On the equator, the sun travels from the east to west 15 miles per minute, 225 in 15 minutes, 450 in 30 minutes, and 900 miles in 1 hour. And it enlarges or decreases in orbit north and south 15 miles every day, 400 miles every 30 days, and 900 miles every 60 days. So here we have the equator at 0, and these are geographical miles north or south of the equator, and the sun goes 3,450 miles north of the equator, and down here about it says 2,700 to 3,000 miles south of the equator. And where the sun is at, of course, it depends on the time of the year. It's here for June. And then we get the solstice of July and May, August, April, September and March, October and February, November and January. And then, of course, the December 22nd solstice, where it turns back and starts heading this way. Figure 11 from the world, a great circle route, and showing that when you go from San Francisco to Yokohama, Japan, you follow this big curved path if the Earth is a globe. But on the polar projection, when you go from San Francisco to Yokohama, you're going in a straight line. And similar concepts have been discussed with flight paths. The polar projection shows that the direct route is a straight line between the 2 points and is not as suggested by Pickles. In figure 11 above, it is a curve to the north and being part of the great circle of the globe. So, even though the ship's going in a straight line, on the globe it's making this big curve, but with the flat Earth projection, of course, it's just a perfectly straight line between the 2 points. Here we get a map of Antarctica. Admiral Byrd in 1946 or 47 flew from the Ross Sea base Little America beyond the South Pole and returned to base 1,900 miles. And 200 more miles he would have crossed from coast to coast if maps and the globe are true. Samuel Shenton, 1953. If the flat Earth is correct, the perimeter of the ice pack is some 60,000 miles in circumference. Therefore, coast-to-coast flight would be impossible. So Richard Byrd would have not been able to complete his flight. It would not be a direct flight, but part of a great circle, and it would encircle a flight of 25 to 30,000 miles. And the equator going around the sphere Earth is supposed to be 25,000 miles. The Earth is widest at the equator. The distance around the Earth is 24,901 miles. So that's what's accepted, the 25,000 miles that go around the circumference of the equator. And it says, given on popular model of a globe, it says 21,901.8 miles. But according to the SMS map, at latitude 30 degrees south, it's 27,540 miles. So that's where this 30 degrees south is. We have, according to the SMS map, it is 27,000 miles to go around latitude 30 degrees south. And this must be where, Neil deGrasse Tyson gets the pear Earth, or the Earth is bulging south of the equator. NASA says that there is an equatorial bulge, and that the Earth is fatter down in the southern hemisphere.
So, Earth, throughout its life, even when it formed, it was spinning, and it got a little wider at the equator than it does at the poles. So it's not actually a sphere; it's oblate, and officially it's an oblate spheroid. That's what we call it. But not only that, it's slightly wider below the equator than above the equator.
A little chubbier.
A little chubbier.
Yeah.
Chubby's a good word. It's like pear-shaped.
Yeah.
So, it turns out the pear-shapedness is bigger than the height of Mount Everest above sea level.
So that looks to be depicted here, where at 30 degrees south it is much further to go around Earth than it is up at the equator at 25,000 miles around the Earth. Certainly evidence of a flat Earth. And if the planet looks like this, then NASA's been giving us some wrong images, because it's got this big bulge on the southern side. And just some newspaper clippings here. What is the Earth made of? It says. And go ahead and pause the video to read through some of his notes here. Here we got the phases of the moon. Discovery 2 in the Antarctic. And here's where they went. But how far did they go? The trip took them 60,000 miles along the South Polar Ice Edge. That's how far they should go if the Earth's flat and they're circling around the ice wall of Antarctica. A picture of the midnight sun, telling time by the moonlight. A sundial or moon dial. Here we have a boomerang with a warhead, meaning the V-2 rocket shot into the air only to fall back near where they took off from. This crater was carved by a homing rocket, where there was many like it in Hellendoorn Wood. And we get this parachute guy up in outer space, it looks like, with some UFO ships. Trying to figure out how to get back to Earth. Horizon, the circle bounding the view where the Earth and sky appear to meet. Horizo, to bound. Horos, a limit. Horizontal, pertaining to the horizon. Parallel to horizon level, near the horizon. Movements. In 1 hour, the Earth is supposed to rotate 1,000 miles on its axis, travel 65,000 miles in orbit, and with all our solar system, 20,000 miles towards Lyra. This comes from our ball. This guy obviously loves a ball. A complete year's rotation shown in about 1.5 minutes. And I'm wondering if these papers moved, or if somehow he had some moving pieces here and animated them. But a complete year's rotation shown in about 1.5 minutes. And he says that the two distant stars marked X were not moving. So this one wasn't moving, this one wasn't moving. A peep show at South Bank Exhibition, 1951, in the Dome of Discovery model showing the rotation of planets around a central sun. At one time, all the planets except the stationary one marked X were grouped together on the far side of the sun. What would happen then to the supposed law of gravity? More importantly, why are there planets up here that just don't move at all? That definitely doesn't line up with the law of gravity. Star tracks showing the concentric circles made on fixed plate photo exposed for 4 hours with the Polaris pole star dead center. The telescope, in fact, remained fixed while the heavens rotated in obedience to the diurnal motion. And Robert S. Ball tried to use this photograph to prove a sphere Earth, but the lie is evident, as it shows that the diurnal motion only if elliptical motion were true, 40 miles per second. A clear photograph could not be taken without showing great distortion on the concentric circles in the high heavens. So if the Earth is moving 66,000 miles per hour, you're not going to end up with these perfect concentric circles like this. The only way we're going to be able to see a photograph like this is if we're on a non-moving Earth and the stars above are rotating over our head. And if the Earth is flat and motionless, we will see this. But if the Earth is on its orbital motion, as science says, we would look up and we would just see some smeared mess like this. The smeared effect of a photoplate, if exposed to 4 hours under the conditions of axial rotation and terrific orbital speed of 40 miles per second. You wouldn't end up with concentric star circles. You would just have a smeared mess of stars flying by. Does the pole star move? Orthodox display. Parallel lines never meet. Horizons, water levels, etc. We have some kind of a... Oh, there used to be something taped here. It looks like it got removed. Horizon level over 500 miles dip or curvature in 2,000 miles from Lake Superior to the Atlantic sea level and sea level. It looks like that paper is gone. The horizon is always level with eyes at any height. Early training of airmen includes instruction to observe the horizon and fly in accordance with the set principles as shown in this chart. Seen also in infrared photographs taken 3 to 4 miles above the Earth. These show that the horizon is still level with the observer's eye or the camera, and that the great waterways and land masses are level, like some great ice flow, extending even beyond the scope of the infrared rays. Plain sailing is sailing a ship or making the arithmetical calculations for doing so on the assumption that the Earth is perfectly flat. Professor Evers, Navigation in Theory and Practice, page 66. A couple of airplanes. And the V-1 rockets built for level flight as long as the fuel lasted. Being pilotless, there was no selection of flight course once the dang thing was launched. No allowance made for curvature or rotation, much less for orbital speed. So in building these V-1 rockets, of course, they didn't factor in that there was any curvature of the surface of Earth. They just assumed that it's flat, and they sent it out flying over a flat plane, and it worked exactly as they assumed. They didn't need to add in any calculations for the curvature of Earth or for orbital speed. And a table here with, I'm not sure what's going on, some kind of an experiment. The legs have broken on the table. I'm not sure what happened there, but something is moving this way. I'd need someone to explain this one. I can't figure out what the experiment is here. Here is a famous one where the canal experiment. Line up the flags in the canal. If the Earth's a sphere, we shouldn't be able to see the guy down here because we'd be looking over the curvature of Earth. But in reality, what happens is, the Bedford level experiment, we can see the guy 6 miles down the canal. So we can essentially see over the curvature of the Earth. The horizon is always level and always at eye level. This would be impossible if the Earth had such curvature as 8 inches per mile from position B. One should then be able to look slightly downwards to the horizon if such a curvature existed. But that's not what we find. What we see in reality is the horizon is at eye level, and we never have to look down to see the horizon down here. Here we have a diagram showing why ships disappear at sea. Perspective disappearance of ships at sea on the horizon level. And he doesn't mention here terrestrial refraction, which is the bending of light rays as they travel horizontally over the surface of Earth. They follow a curve. So in addition to the ship disappearing on the horizon line due to perspective, we also have to remember that ships could also disappear at the horizon line due to terrestrial refraction. And definitely for a ship to disappear on the horizon line, you do not need a sphere Earth. You would have disappearing ships, whether it's a flat or a sphere. Various maps on this paper, and he says This is very nearly correct as it approaches the polar projection. So this map, we got a heart-shaped map, says that it's pretty close to a true map. A typical flat Earth map here, and some ocean currents. Here we have a few different photos and infrared photos showing how England looks to a Nazi at 20,000 feet above the French. Washington from the air. What is a true level? Sun, eclipse, shadows, etc. And it's talking here about the progression of the shadow, and this could only be possible if the Earth is stationary. Also, a slight curve of shadow answers to the condition of a plane Earth and the polar projection, and the curved course of the Sun and the Moon. So evidence from eclipses that the Earth is flat. And more info here on that eclipse. Eclipse of the Sun in 1954. If diurnal rotation were true from east to west, the shadow would have traced a pathway across northern Canada. The orbital course also would have quickly removed the shadow from the globe in a sweeping curved northwest direction. So here showing that eclipses are proof of a flat plane, and that the eclipse shows a geocentric system. Here is the heliocentric system, and looks like there was a misspelling on orthodoxy, which was corrected and taped over, and some calculations in respect to that. And here, I guess, making fun of gravity, which is okay with me. I'm no fan of the Freemason Isaac Newton. But if the on this side, if you're closer to a massive object, an object with a high mass, and you're able to float on the ocean here, then when you went onto the other side over here, the mass from this object would be pulling you towards it. Looks like pulling you down through the ocean. Isaac Newton himself said that gravitation is such a great absurdity that any competent man who has the ability to think should never fall for it. And then we get Sir Robert Ball, who says the law of gravitation underlies the whole of astronomy. In other words, according to Isaac Newton, the whole of astronomy is such a great absurdity that nobody who has the ability to think should ever fall for its lies. The moon, motion, eclipses, etc. Russ moon photos. Well, the 1969 photos of the moon were certainly Hollywood fakes, so I'm not sure about that. But unknown course of Earth, also the flexibility of the supposed law of gravity at X. So the moon, why doesn't it continue to circle around here? Instead, it just flies right on by, and it flies right on by here again. We have flexibilities of the supposed law of gravity at X, and here. What troubles our airmen must have to combat when landing upon the Earth. The diurnal rotation of 1,000 miles per hour, extra to moon's motion, must give some headaches. Or is the Earth stable? And these problems are depicted in this cartoon here. Jeff Hawke fights to match the conflicting movements of the moon and the rocket's parabolic descent, overriding the basic landing pattern selected by the automatic controls at the last moment for a beat of the pants touchdown. And one of the problems here is if the Earth is spinning at 1,000 miles per hour, and it's also flying through the universe at 66,000 miles per hour. If you go out into space and you're in the vacuum of space out here in the black area, the Earth is going to continue to move at 66,000 miles per hour away from you. So if you're in space and you're trying to get back down to Earth, and this Earth is flying away from you at 66,000 miles per hour, how do you get from space back down into Earth? You would first have to be going 66,000 miles per hour to match the speed of Earth. Then you'd have to go faster than that so that you can get into the atmosphere. And these are problems that are not addressed by NASA. They just take a rocket ship up and bring it back, no problem. Here's some depiction, looks like, of the phases of the moon and the light coming from the sun in perfectly straight lines, which we know is not true. The light from the sun comes out. It follows curved paths due to the gradient of the atmosphere. Here's a U.S. balloon satellite 1,000 miles up, seen southward at night as a bright star. And the problem with this is the balloon has gone 1,000 miles up, and the sun is over here on this side of the Earth. But this balloon has lit up like a bright star. Now, if the light from the sun is coming in from this way, then we only have a shadow of the Earth over here, and this balloon would not be lit up. That's not what happened, in fact. What happened was the balloon went 1,000 miles up right here, and the light from the sun was able to shine onto it. Once again, an experiment that proves that the Earth cannot be a sphere. It must be flat. For if this balloon shows up as a bright star, then there's no way possible that the light rays from the sun were wrapping around the planet and then coming over here to light up the balloon. Impossible for a balloon sunk in Earth's night shadow to receive light rays from the distant sun. Here's the orthodox but false photograph presentation of curvature. And here we get to the wide vision lens and the distortion of the horizon. Now, this is where I'm going to disagree with Samuel Shenton, because Samuel did not talk about atmospheric refraction, terrestrial refraction, astronomical refraction. He certainly didn't talk about horizontal refraction. And if you're unfamiliar with horizontal refraction, please go to my channel and watch the video called A Physicist's Flat Earth, Horizontal Refraction. It explains why, if you were at 155 miles up, or if you're at a high elevation such as the International Space Station, then you will see a curvature on the surface of the flat Earth. That's just basic physics. This video isn't going to explain that, but these various slides are talking about the visible curvature of the surface of Earth. And we know now that that is caused by horizontal refraction, and that the light waves between this camera that took this picture and the surface of the Earth, those light waves followed a large curve, and that's what ends up causing this curvature that we see on Earth from space. So if the Earth is flat, we should expect to see a curved photograph from a high elevation, which is exactly what happened with the V2 rockets. And this is talking about, I guess, about how photographs which are used in the newspaper are fake. Here is a supposed picture of the atomic bomb blowing up. And it says right here, this picture is taken so far away that the curvature of Earth can be seen. So here's the curvature of Earth. And you got the big O explosion above that. But wait, this picture is not a genuine photograph. This is a drawing by Walt Disney, the animator. So it just goes to show you that a lot of times in the newspaper and media, they'll show you one thing and say that it's, you know, this is a legitimate picture. You can see the curvature of Earth here, and it turns out this is just some silly picture that was made by Walt Disney. But it certainly would have incited fear and made people scared of these bombs blowing up. What is Folkestone doing on the United Nations Day, October 24th? I don't know what Folkestone is, but I do know the United Nations depicts, of course, the flat Earth map and what seems to be Antarctica wrapping around it. The vital 20 years of the 70s. So you got 15 years youth, you've got 20 for the development of mind, body, business, spirit, truth, and God, which is going to bring you to 35 years old. Then 10 years in decline, which is, dang, that's where I'm at right now. I'm just past the vital stage, and I'm in 10 years of decline, I guess. I'm going to oppose this one and say that I'm not in decline because, goodness sakes, then we get 20 to 25 years of sleep and illness, and I think there's a lot more I can do than decline and have illness. But nevertheless, don't throw out your vital 20 years and, the ages from 15 until 35. Of course, those are some of your best years. And here are a few members of the Zetetic Society of 1883. And interesting that Samuel Robotham isn't mentioned here because he was the founder of this Zetetic Society, but he passed away in 1884. So he should have still been alive in 1883, but not mentioned as being a part of the Zetetic Society here. It could be interesting to research some of these people and find any books or papers that they may have written. In these last days, men have among other bad traits a form of godliness, but denying the power thereof. That sounds like NASA, a form of godliness, not in my eyes, but in the eyes of, I guess, the public. That's how they view them, but they deny the power of God. So maybe we're in the last days to proclaim the power of the Lord, to magnify his holy name, to extol the truth of his word, to honor the words and works of his son, Yeshua. The original scriptures, inspired and infallible. And this one's interesting. It's we're looking like sphere earth and planets again. In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth, and God said, "Let there be light in the heavens." No one has any idea how the sun was made, but modern scientists suppose that the earth was made about 2,000 million years ago when a passing star, by its attraction, pulled flaming stuff out of the sun, which split up into pieces, one of which cooled down. And man, I don't know how they come up with this stuff. How do people believe in the Big Bang? I don't know. And once again, he's got pictures of the sphere Earth. Here, it looks like a little tiny bit of Antarctica. Christian spiritual instruction. Exodus says that the heaven above, but a person's instructional drawing on school blackboard for children, people living on a globe world look to heaven in every direction. So on the globe, you're looking up, you're looking down. If you're in Australia or something, you're looking down to see heaven because that's your up. So they would have people looking for heaven in every direction. And the conclusion of the lesson is children are taught to say, "We do not know where heaven is." So, but of course on the flat earth, heaven is up. It's at the top of the firmament. And this seems to be disputing the theory of gravity that if one body was to pass by close enough to another one, that it would pull pieces of that earth towards it, because this has a gravitational force. So maybe an uprooted tree or something that was just sitting on the surface would get pulled over to the passing body, which does not happen. If a star pulls pieces from the sun and continues on its way, it was a free agent, or it was controlled by some larger body, and the larger body must be controlled by even larger one, and so on. It is the glory of God to conceal a thing, but the honor of kings is to search out a matter. So God certainly has concealed the truth of the earth and the universe to us, but it should be our honor to seek out the truth of these matters. Exact knowledge is required of us. Therefore, gird up the loins of your mind. This is the Christian's ABC of the heavenly kingdom. He that believeth not in God hath made him a liar. Faith is not required. Alternative of Genesis 1:1, out of the ever-existing essence of space, or electric matter, substance, the twofold energy formed the double heaven. So here again, the double heaven. That's a new concept to me. I'm going to have to research what exactly that is. And what alternative of Genesis 1:1 is this? Is this just a different interpretation of the verse? Twofold energy, positive and negative phases of the one Spirit of God in manifestation. Elohim is a host of dual or double-sexed beings. Elo is the feminine noun. H indicates gender. If single feminine begins meant, it would have been Elo. But the plural is Oth. So the plural or feminine of gods is Eloth. And this masculine is used plural ending im added to the fem. So we have Elo, Elohim. It is a host of male/female double-sexed beings. Positive, negative creation energy. So this is the last slide, and it's definitely the most controversial, because when I hear about these double-sexed beings, I just think about the Baphomet here, who has the breasts as well as the phallus coming up. So, you know, and it appears that the double snakes wrapping around are a symbol of the spinal fluid, which goes down, and then if you are abstinent, it will come back up the vertebrae. So, but anyways, when it talks about these double-sexed beings, I'm not entirely a fan of that, and I don't know if this is truth. Leonardo da Vinci has a painting. I'm not going to show the full thing here because it's rather disgusting, but it's called Angel Incarnate, and it shows a being with breasts and a phallus. So it's you know, I don't know about that painting, because it looked like to me the depiction of a demon or a Baphomet, but again, it does have both of the sexes, which seems to align with what this says here. Maybe angels have, you know, are double-sexed beings. I don't know. But if they have the ability to, if they have the creative energy, they're able to create all by themselves, in that they have both the male and the female parts, then I don't know why in Genesis they wanted to reproduce with human females. It seems like the 200 that descended upon the summit of Mount Hermon from the Book of Enoch to reproduce with human females, it seems like that they would only have the male, you know, the male side of it, because they went out and got female wives and reproduced with them. But nevertheless, moving on from this controversial slide, the next one is back to Genesis chapter 1. So that's the end of these slides. Some very interesting slides and well done flat earth research. So I wanted to share that. And if you want to view these for yourself, the link is below, over to archive.org. Thanks for watching, guys. I'll see you in the next one.